The Adventure of the Retired Colourman is a Sherlock Holmes short story by the British author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It was actually first published in the December 10, 1926 issue of Liberty magazine in the United States and in January 1927 issue of the Strand magazine in the United Kingdom. It would be republished in July 1927 as a part of the anthology called The Case Book of Sherlock Holmes. Before we begin with the summary and the briefing of the story, I should give you a brief introduction about who Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is. As you can see in the slide, Sir Arthur Ignatius Conan Doyle was born in 22nd May 1859 and died on 7th July 1930. He was actually a British writer and a physician. He created the character called Sherlock Holmes, who is quite famous now. This character is quite famous now. He was created in 1887 and it was created for the first story by Arthur Conan Doyle called A Study in Scarlet. This is the first of the four novels of the fifth and 56 short stories about Holmes and Dr. Watson. The Sherlock Holmes stories are milestones in the field of crime fiction. Now let us visit the characters in this short story. So as you can see, this is a detective kind of a story, and you are deducing what is going on here. This is a crime fiction, and so in this character, as we know, there are detectives. Sherlock Holmes is there, one of the character, and the next character is Dr. Watson, who is always his accomplice in his detective work. And we also meet another detective called Barker. He is actually a rival of Sherlock Holmes. Yeah. And then we have the title character of this story, Josiah Umberly, who is a retired colorman. Then we have his, actually they don't appear in the story, but the story is all about them. So these two people, Dr. Ernest, who is Josiah Umberly's friend, and we have Mrs. Umberly, Josiah Umberly's young wife. There are two or three other minor characters also in this short story. So now without much delay, let us go and see what this story is about. This is an interesting story. You would have felt nice when you read it. But to summarize the story, this is like this. Sherlock Holmes is hired by Josiah Umberly, who is a retired art supply dealer from Lewisham. He has hired him to look into his wife's disappearance. She has left with a neighbor who is called Dr. Ray Ernest, taking a huge quantity of cash and securities. Umberly wants to track these two down, though it is unclear if he is more interested to find his wife or to find his money. Holmes is too busy with another case, so he asks Dr. Watson to visit Lewisham and to observe what he can and get. Although Watson is keenly aware that this is Holmes' area, he does his best observing Umberly. He visits Umberly. Yeah, now we see that Watson is visiting Umberly at Holmes' request, and he's trying his level best to observe everything. Now, when Watson reaches Umberly's house, he finds Umberly is busy painting his home. His home is very not neat and tidy. It is very ill kept, and he's trying to clean it. And so he's beginning by painting, and he has started painting his strong room. Ambali shows many things about his wife. He actually tears his wife's photo in front of Watson because he's very angry and he's very sad. He shows two tickets, no, the tickets his wife did not use uh, because he had actually purchased some tickets, three tickets for his wife, his friend, and for himself to watch a show. But his wife did not come with him. She told that she is having a headache and she didn't come. It was on that day that his wife and his best friend Ernest disappeared together. Watson very keenly notes the seat numbers that the tickets had. Watson also sees Umberly's strong room now. from which his wife had taken the valuables. Ambali says that she might have had the key, had a key of her own, and like that, such case. Now, while Watson was returning back to Baker Street, he also notices another thing. There was a person who looks like a military man, ex-military man. He was wearing a tinted gray sunglasses. He had asked this person for the way because he didn't know, Watson didn't know where to find Josiah Amberley's home. So initially in the morning when he came to this place, he had asked this person about where Amberley's house is. Now, and then after he had directed, this military looking man had actually given him a strange kind of a look. Now, while Watson is returning to Backstreet, and while he's running for the train to come back to Baker Street, this military man also is running to catch the train. Yeah, Watson comes back to Baker Street and slowly describes everything that he saw to Sherlock Holmes. Now, Sherlock Holmes notes everything with a nod. He's actually lazily listening. You might think that he is sleeping, but he is very sharp. He's listening to everything. Even the reference of that military type man also, Sherlock Holmes notices that Sherlock Holmes recognizes him even without Watson describing him very clearly. Sherlock Holmes recognizes him as a rival detective, and his name is Baker. Actually, Dr. Ernest's family has hired him to find the missing doctor. Among all these things, another happens when Watson describes all these things. Sherlock Holmes will say why Watson did not inquire the neighbors about these things, about Mr. and Mrs. Umberley. Watson had actually did not had forgotten about this, but Sherlock Holmes had already got information about it. A number of other things about Umberley was very obvious, like he is a miser, and he is also a very jealous kind of a man, and he is very strict with his wife, and so naturally maybe his wife felt nice in the company of much younger Dr. Ray Ernest, who might have been very kind to her in contrast to her husband. It is also seen that this Ambali is a very avid chess player, and this is a cause for Amberley's and Ernest's friendship also. Dr. Sherlock Holmes now, points, frames a kind of sketch about what kind of person this Amberley is, and he also notes that Amberley might be a kind of scheming person who has a scheming mind because he excels in chess. Holmes suspects that something is wrong, and so he sends Watson and Amberley on a fool's errand to the remote village of Little Prulington. He actually he schemes it, he devises it like that. Umberley comes to Sherlock Holmes saying that he received a letter saying that some vicar, some priest in the little village called Little Pulington has a letter about his wife and and Dr. Ernest. When Umberley gives this letter to Sherlock Holmes asks Watson and Umberley to visit that place together. Now, Holmes bring Watson to one side and tells him that he has to pay thorough attention to Umberley all the while and to see that Umberley does not return back from that journey. He should surely visit that place and only then come back to that home. Holmes is sending Watson and Umberley on this fool trip just to keep Umberley out of the way while Holmes breaks into Umberley's house to investigate. He is caught by Baker because Baker is all the while watching Umberly and his house. But in spite, they both Barker catches Sherlock Holmes entering Umberly's house. They both decide to work together. They reach a conclusion, and later Holmes and Barker together confronts Umberly with a dramatic question. They ask, "What did you do with the bodies?" Holmes manhandles Umberly just in time to stop him from taking a poison pill. Umberly is obviously guilty. Holmes explains how he reached to this conclusion. Umberley's alibi fell apart when Holmes discovers that his seat at Haymarket Theatre on that day was not occupied. Actually, all the three seats were not occupied on that night on which these people went missing. Its number and again, Holmes are also started suspecting why Umberly was painting his strong home in such a very when he is in such a pathetic condition. It is actually Umberly was trying to paint because Umberly was trying to conceal some smell that was there in that room with the smell of the paint. When Holmes breaks into Umberly's house, he realizes that it was uh, he found a gas pipe leading into the strong room with a pipe with a tap outside. Umberly had actually made his wife and her lover, he believed Dr. Ernest to be her lover, to enter the strong room. On the day, he told that he was going to the theater to watch that show. And he had actually locked these two people inside the strong room. And after locking them, he turned on the gas. And he turned on the gas, and both of them died inside the strong room. Actually, while they were dying, Dr. Ernest had actually started writing some message with using a purple pencil. It was actually WEWE. Maybe he had started writing "We were murdered." So the victims had actually tried to show that they were murdered. These things were found out, and according to what Sherlock Holmes told, the bodies of these two victims were found in a disused well in the garden. Umberly was actually trying to mask all his crime activity, and he was scheming so much that he thought that he is too clever that he could put dust in the eyes of the police and also of the detectives. He never thought that the detectives would catch him. That is the reason why he actually invited Sherlock Holmes to find out his wife. He thought even Sherlock Holmes cannot find that he had killed his wife and his best friend. Home, yeah, this is the conclusion of the story. So, if you read this story, you will come to know that there are various clues given all through the stories. If we pay keen attention to who the killer is and how it was done, we can actually become detectives even before Sherlock Holmes find Sherlock Holmes. We can actually track the route of Sherlock Holmes and how he found out the murder. So this is the end of this story. Hope you have understood the story. If you have any doubts, please ask the questions in the comment section.